Understanding tonality is really a crucial cornerstone to being able to fully appreciate classical music. In my original plans for this series, I wasn't going to bring up tonality. Why would talking about key systems be relevant to someone who just wants to enjoy listening? It seemed theoretical rather than practical, but I came to rediscover that tonality can be one of the most important components of a piece of music, particularly from the works of J.S. Bach to Shostakovich or beyond. Good use of tonality is what makes a piece of music well structured, exciting, engaging, or emotionally satisfying. Moreover, key relations are maybe among the most powerful means of expression in music. So, by the end of this video, I hope to tell you all you need to know about tonality so you can start listening at a higher level, and in the next videos we'll go through all the major structures that appear in classical music. And to properly understand structures, you probably need this basic understanding of tonality. So hopefully by the end of the next few videos, you'll be able to follow and appreciate a piece of music pretty well. I might need to go a little theoretical here and there, and that's only because it's crucial to maximizing your appreciation of classical music. The theory comes first, and then we'll look at how useful this is in the real world. I'll try to make it as engaging as possible. So let's get into it. We want to look at tonality, keys, and key relations. What is tonality? Well, in a nutshell, it's the art or system of using keys and key relations. So really here, we're studying these two things. I should note that this system of tonality is not a science. It took centuries to develop and is deeply rooted in our Western understanding of music history. If you go back to Palestrina, the system hasn't quite fully developed yet, though it's not far off. So his music is called modal music rather than tonal music. Skip 120 years or so, and we get to J.S. Bach, and it may be Bach's greatest achievement that he brought the tonal system that we know to full fruition through his amazing output. And Bach's system of tonality is still taught today because it's been that influential. So let's start with keys. This might be a little obvious, but you may have heard of keys being major or minor. What does that mean? Basically, something being major or minor defines the quality of that thing. A C major scale may seem brighter or happier, while a C minor scale might seem darker or gloomier. Both have the same home note, C, but the quality is different because some of the notes in the scale have been raised or lowered a half step, and this becomes important when we start to look at key relations. Anyway, earlier composers used to believe that different keys had their own characters. For example, Beethoven thought B minor was a black key, and A flat minor was a barbarous key, while E flat major was heroic, and so much of his music is written to reflect these key characters, say the Eroica or Heroic Symphony in E flat major. The thing is, early keyboards were tuned in quite a different way from today's pianos. This means that Beethoven's piano would have had an audibly different character for every different key that he played in, whereas today's pianos are evened out, so every key sounds exactly the same, meaning no more key characters. So anyway, what does it mean to be in a key? We can think of being in a key as like being centered in a certain perspective. For example, when we're in the key of C major, the chord C major is our home. It's the center of our perspective. For as long as we remain in C major, we hear every other chord as being in some kind of relation to our home chord. So C major would be chord 1, and from this perspective, F major would be heard as chord 4, G major as chord 5, A minor as chord 6, and so on. And all these Roman numerals mean that the chords have certain specific functions in traditional harmony. But in a sense, we see all the other chords from the perspective of C major, our home chord. This home chord is more formally known as the tonic, so in this case, C is the tonic. If the tonic is the most important chord in a key, the next chord of almost equal importance is called the dominant. The dominant is the 5th note of the scale, or the 5th chord, so in C major it would be G. Why is the dominant so important? Well, normally the dominant is the penultimate chord you hear before a full close or a perfect cadence. When the dominant appears, it often means that the tonic is coming, and so it really helps to clarify and solidify which key we're in. Let's say the music has been exploring and we're no longer sure what key we're in. If the music lands on a certain set of notes, it can't stay there for very long before it starts to sound like it's the dominant of the chord a 5th below. If we add a 7th to the chord, it becomes a certainty that it's leading to the tonic. This is definitely the dominant of this. Hence the huge importance of the dominant 7th chord. It provides certainty that we are approaching a clear cadence. Similarly, dominant preparation is the act of building on the dominant for some time to create great expectancy that we are about to arrive at its tonic. In a sense then, a tonic is often defined and solidified by its dominant. So, most pieces end in the key in which they began. When we say a piece is in F major, we don't mean it stays in F major for the entire thing. That might be boring. But we expect that it'll start and finish in F major, its home key. And doing this is a way of giving the piece a sense of unity and finality. However, during the piece, they'll often visit other keys. The music will change key. And there's a fancy word we use for changing keys: modulation. To modulate means simply to fully change key, to firmly establish a new tonic. Remember how we said that being in a key is like hearing the music from a certain perspective, where everything relates to your home chord? Well, if we modulate, it means we have a new tonic, and therefore a new home chord, and a new home perspective. If we modulate from C major to G major, G is our new chord 1, our new tonic. C major is no longer chord 1, but chord 4 in our new key. And as chord 4, it has a different function, so we can see that our perspective has changed. And D becomes our new dominant, being the 5th note of G major. So we see how in changing keys, we change our perspective and change the way all the other keys and chords relate to our new home. There's an important nuance of language, the difference between being in and on something. Let's say the overall piece of music is in C major, meaning it'll start in C, probably explore other terrains, and eventually find its way back home to C. If I were to describe the music as playing on G major or on the dominant, that simply means he's using the G major chord, and does not mean he's changed key. But if I say he's now in G major or in the dominant key, it means he's actually changed key to G. So on just means he's on a chord, but in means he's in a key. So that covers most of the technical jargon. Let's get to the exciting and important bit: key relations. Whatever key you're in, from your home tonic you can easily modulate to 5 other keys. These are called direct relationships, and a direct relationship between 2 keys comes from the fact that the tonic triad of one key, say C major, also features in these other keys. So, for example, C major has a function in the keys of F major, G major, A minor, and so on. Another way of thinking about it is that each of these keys' tonic triads, each of these chords, can be made from the C major scale. So all 5 of these are related to C major. Let's hear them. And here are the 5 keys for C minor. Remember, the C minor scale is a bit different, so the minor key has different key relations. You'll notice there's a sneaky mirror image here. If I go backwards from A minor, I get all the keys related to A minor. And it's the same keys as C major. They share the same related keys, so we call A minor the relative minor of C major. Similarly, if we go backwards from E flat major, we get all of E flat major's key relations, which are the same related keys as C minor. So E flat major is the relative major of C minor. They're very closely related. So this is all theory, but how can we appreciate this in practice? I think the best way to understand it is that it's pretty normal and pretty easy for a composer to modulate between these related key areas. But things get exciting, surprising, or even astonishing when a composer ventures beyond these closely related keys, escaping this box and taking us to some key far from home. It can set up a sense of intrigue or excitement, because now the composer has to find his way back from these faraway lands, these unrelated keys, all the way back to home. And some keys are more distant than others. For example, from C major, B minor, or D flat major, or F sharp major, are extremely foreign keys, and so modulating there would be taking your music to some extreme distance from your home key. Let's look at a few composers. J.S. Bach, the godfather of Western tonality, would normally stay within the range of these direct key relations. When he goes outside them, the effect is pretty astonishing or mystifying, though there are some cases where he just drifts a little beyond and then back again. And he always does astonish, because his extraordinary modulations take us to the extremes of the harmonic universe. For Bach to take us to these far-reaching horizons, and then to find his way home again, all while remaining in his Baroque musical language, feels as if you're witnessing some kind of musical miracle. To Joseph Haydn, these foreign keys were treated almost as mysteries, and in Mozart they start appearing more commonly, especially the darker ones. One of the many amazing achievements of Beethoven is that through his music, he basically managed to map out the whole range of key relationships with an exact knowledge of each degree of remoteness and each possibility of relation. He became extremely adept at finding his way to any remote area in the most ingenious or elegantly simple ways, and then finding his way back home while being consistently original. Part of this is that Beethoven starts treating major and minor keys on the same tonic as identical, so he'd think of C major and C minor as identical, but also A minor and A major. This means that any of these keys can be used in major or minor, and still in some way be related to each other, and this obviously opens up so many new doors of possibility for modulation. It's fascinating and exciting to see how different composers deal with modulations and key relationships as we progress through history. Of course, different composers have new ideas or ways of doing things, and there's no time to explore everything in this video. But one of the most rich and emotionally rewarding things is to study how they use their keys as structural tools. It's more exciting than it sounds. I'm going to look at this in the next videos, and I promise they won't be so theory dense. One last thing, don't worry if you can't follow all of these key relationships while listening. Honestly, no one expects you to, and even many of the best musicians can't follow exactly what key they're in. Sometimes it's actually most fun to appreciate key relations when you can see them on paper and see just how far from home we are. When we're listening, we don't need to know exactly what key we're in at every moment. The most important effect when listening is that of recognizing when we're clearly in a key, recognizing when we have a stable tonic and dominant, and then recognizing when we don't have a stable tonic and dominant, when we're taken away from home, when we're taken from stability to instability, moving through lots of different keys, and then finally, perhaps after much anticipation and dominant preparation, we return home to the home tonic, which is almost always an important moment in the music. It may come crashing home, or it may sneak up on you unexpected, but it's almost always exciting and intriguing. These are definitely things you can learn to listen for in music, even if you're not sure which exact key you're actually in. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. I'm making more for this series. The following videos are going to be on musical structures, which is extremely useful to understand for following music. If you like this video, then please do subscribe and share. Thank you for watching.